I was a kid. 21 years ago, Julian and I boarded a flight on Southwest Airlines. It was the cheapest ticket that my dad could buy. So we stopped twice, in El Paso and in San Diego, before making it to San Francisco and showing up to Stanford for the first time. I remember when we made our way here, it was one of the first times that we had ever left home. He and I had grown up on the west side of San Antonio, which is a very iconic neighborhood in our city. It would be like growing up in East Los Angeles, or in Pilsen in Chicago, somewhere in the Bronx maybe, an area that was 90% Mexican American. And so when we came, we only left our city really 3 or 4 or 5 times. We showed up for the first time with 3 bags each. We cried about half the way to San Francisco as we were leaving home. And I can remember getting here and how welcoming and how warm all of the people at Stanford were. And when you show up, we showed up for the first day of orientation, and I was in Sarah and Stern Hall. My brother was in Wilbur. And we showed up to the tables and they yelled our names, Joaquin, Leon. And I remember that we felt very welcome. And Stanford became, for us, a kind of second home. But that journey to get here, we owed a lot of debt to many in our family. You see, that story for us was a long time in coming. Last year, my brother, Leon, had a chance to tell the story of our grandmother, Joaquin Castro, who was the first in our family to come to the United States from Mexico. She came here as a 6-year-old girl. She was an orphan because both her parents had died during the time of the Mexican Revolution. And the closest relatives who could take her in were in San Antonio. My grandmother never made it past the 4th grade. Like many of her generation, she worked without ever having a high school diploma. Because she never had a formal education, my grandmother worked her whole life as a maid, a babysitter, and a cook to do every single thing that she could to get by for herself, but also to give my mom, her only child, and her grandkids, my brother and I, the best possible chance in life that we can possibly have, and an even better life in America than she had. The reason that I share that story with you is not because I think that it's special, but because I think that story is the story of so many of our families who have come here throughout the years. The story is one of each generation of Americans doing everything that it can to make sure that the next generation goes further. It is building what I call an infrastructure of opportunity in America. By that I mean that just as there's an infrastructure of streets and roads and highways that helps each of us get to where we want to go on the road, in America, there's another kind of infrastructure. It's an infrastructure of opportunity that helps each of us get to where we want to go in life. Great schools and universities, a wonderful healthcare system, an economy that's built around well-paying jobs so that people can support themselves and their family members. Each generation of Americans, including our parents and grandparents, have helped build it. It's the reason that my grandmother, as a 6-year-old who came here as an orphan, who worked as a maid, could see her grandsons in 1992 come to this university for the first time and celebrated all of that success. It's the reason I believe that our families have persevered and prevailed. And for many reasons, I think that that is the reason that you are here today, graduating. Your success is, of course, your own, but it is also the success of your parents, and your grandparents, and your family members, and your friends. Everybody in your life who helped you achieve what it is that you have today achieved. And I hope that as you go forward, as you graduate tomorrow, that you will take a minute and think about all of the sacrifices that have been made on your behalf. For my mom and my grandmother, it was sometimes working 2 or 3 jobs at a time. It was giving up a lot of their own time and a lot of their own passions to dedicate to my brother and I. And I would suspect in your lives, the graduates' lives, it's the same for you. And because of everything all We are called to do a lot in this country. And I would challenge you as the next generation of leaders. And remember that if you think about where the country is heading, by 2050, Latinos will be almost 30% of the U.S. population. By 2020, the Latino community in Texas, my home state, will make up about 45%. In California, the same thing. So you carry with you the responsibility to make sure that we carry the mantle of values that have made the country great. Freedom, democracy, and opportunity. To make sure that in 50 years and 100 years, that people still want to come to our country in the same way that many of our families have wanted to come here before. That responsibility is yours, to be engaged in the world, to make sure that you're engaged in the affairs of the nation, to go and vote. You know, sometimes I hear folks, over the years I've heard folks talk about how politics doesn't matter, how policy doesn't matter, how the political parties, there is no difference between them. We don't live life in theory. We live it in practice. Be engaged and be involved. Go out and vote. Make sure others vote. Take the mantle that you have earned as young Americans and make sure that this nation, 50 years from now, is the same nation that people from all over the world want to be in. My grandmother and others, they have hard lives. And if they didn't make it to the ballot booth, then we could forgive them. I would say to the graduates, as I thought for myself when I graduated in 1996, that we have no excuse. You have just graduated from one of the nation's best universities. This country is counting on you to be leaders in your field. There are many people in this room who are graduating who years from now, maybe 2, maybe 10, maybe 30, you will be members of Congress, elected officials, leaders in business. You will be scientists who will make discoveries that will make healthcare better. You have the opportunity to make a big difference in our country and in our world. And I hope as you consider those opportunities, you always think about not only what is in front of you and the responsibility that you bear, but also all of the sacrifices that have come to this point to make that possible for you. That is a very special thing. Well, a few words of advice from me, and I want to say, you know, when I was at Stanford, I was never good at taking advice. So if you don't take my advice, I forgive you. But it would be this. I hope that you always go forward and believe in yourself. Believe that whatever it is that you want to do, if you want to be a business leader, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a famous actor, if you want to be a firefighter, whatever it is that you want to do, that you believe that you can achieve it. And just as important, and I think your families will tell you, that you surround yourself with people who also believe that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. That you can go as far as you want to go. Along the way, there will be people that doubt you. I remember when I was graduating from high school, right after graduation, there are many graduation parties, as you remember, when you graduate from high school. And my brother and I had gone to one. And there was a friend of ours who was at this party, and people were asking each other, what are you going to do next year? Where are you going to go to college? Or what are you going to do in September? And my brother and I said, oh, we're going to go to Stanford. And our friend looked at us, and he said, you know, I know you guys are smart, but I don't know if you're that smart. Well, everything turned out okay. There will be folks who will doubt you along the way, but surround yourself with people who believe in you, who will lift you up. Those people will be like angels in your lives, who can take you as far as you want to go. And I hope that your time here at Stanford has been a wonderful one. This institution, and the people, and the faculty members are just incredible. I hope too that your time here in the beginning at least was a little easier than mine. I remember I got here after that plane ride, and the first thing that we had to do back in 1992, Stanford was always ahead of the curve, and the first thing that we had to do was register for classes on the computer. And back then, most people were still registering by hand. Now, I grew up on the west side of San Antonio, and nowhere in my high school was there a computer with a mouse attached to it. And so I got in front of the computer, and I saw the mouse, and I didn't know how to move the screen. I was trying to register for class, and I grabbed the mouse, and I picked it up, and I started rolling the ball. And the girl that was sitting next to me, she looked at me like I was weird. And then she gave me the first lesson that I ever learned here at Stanford University. She said, you have to put it down and roll it. And I registered for my classes. But I want to tell you the most important lesson that I ever learned at Stanford or at Harvard. And it was this. And it's my final piece of advice to you. I was sitting in class one day in my second year of law school, at Harvard Law School now, in 1999. And by this time, my brother and I had spent 5 years or so at two of the nation's best institutions. And I was sitting there in class with about 30 or 40 other students. As you all know, students, some of the brightest people from all over the country and all over the world. From California, from New York, from Texas, from Idaho, from Japan, from Europe, all over the place. And as I sat there, I finally slowed down for a minute in a way that you learn later on. It's sometimes hard to do when you're 19 or 20 or 21 years old. I slowed down and finally made myself appreciate for a moment how lucky I have been to be in these two wonderful places. And as I listened to the people in the room, I realized that I was the only Latino in those 30 or 40 folks sitting in that classroom. And it gave me two feelings. On the one hand, it made me very sad, because you never want to be the only one. But on the other hand, it gave me a lot of hope and inspiration, because I realized that the people sitting in that classroom with me at Harvard Law School, and the people that I sat in class with here at Stanford University, had the same potential as the people I sat in class with on the west side of San Antonio, at La Jolla Middle School, at Carvajal Elementary, and at Jefferson High School. And that if you had put some of those students that I went to high school with at Jefferson in that classroom with me and with other students, they would have done just as well as I did, or better. And so my charge to you is to always be a trailblazer. Help others like you who come behind you believe that they can come to places like this and graduate from places like this, and that their future and their potential is unlimited. And along the way, I want you guys to know that we love you, that we're praying for you, that we're hoping for you, that we're cheering